The massive chamber fell silent as Commander Zethkari stepped forward. His blue skin gleamed under the bright lights, and his forearms moved with practiced grace as he activated the holographic display. 47 different alien species had gathered for this emergency meeting, their representatives filling every seat in the Coalition's most important room. 3 cycles ago, we detected something unusual, Zethkari began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. A signal from the outer rim. At first, we thought it was just cosmic noise, but our best minds have been working on it day and night. The hologram showed a small yellow star surrounded by several planets. It looked ordinary, nothing special about it at all. Most of the aliens in the room had never heard of this system before. The signal comes from here, Zethkari said, pointing to the 3rd planet from the star. Our records show this world as primitive. The last survey team reported basic industrial development, nothing more. But this signal tells a different story. Dr. Velther, a tall creature with 6 eyes and tentacles instead of arms, stood up from his seat. His species were known throughout the galaxy as the best code breakers. If anyone could understand the signal, it would be him. What we found makes no sense, Velther said, his voice shaking slightly. The signal contains star maps of our entire galaxy. It has detailed information about trade routes, military positions, and political structures. But here's the problem. The signal is old. Very old. A wave of confused chatter filled the room. Species representatives began talking to each other. In dozens of different languages, their voices mixing together in a chaotic symphony of concern. How old? Asked General Marx, a warrior from the Krillian Empire. His red eyes glowed with suspicion as he leaned forward in his chair. Over 200 years, Velther replied. The signal was sent before we even knew this system existed, before we made first contact with dozens of species in this room. Yet somehow, whoever sent it knew about all of us. The room erupted in shocked voices. Some aliens stood up, others began rapid conversations with their assistants. The implications were staggering. How could a primitive world know about galactic civilization before that civilization had even discovered them? There's more, Zethkari continued, raising his voice above the noise. The signal isn't just information, it's an invitation. Whoever sent it wants us to come to their world. They're asking for a meeting. It's obviously a trap, General Marx declared, his clawed hands clenching into fists. No primitive species could know what they claim to know. This must be the work of an enemy, trying to lure our fleets into an ambush. But which enemy? Asked Ambassador Quill, a bird-like creature with brilliant purple feathers. We've been at peace for centuries. Who would have the technology to create such an elaborate deception? The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted to send a military fleet to investigate and destroy any potential threat. Others argued for a peaceful approach, curious about how these beings had obtained such detailed knowledge. In the end, it was Elder Cephia who provided the solution. The ancient being had lived for over 1,000 years and had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. When she spoke, everyone listened. We are afraid, she said simply, afraid of what we don't understand. But fear makes us weak. If this species truly knows what they claim to know, then we must learn how. If they are hostile, we need to understand their capabilities. If they are peaceful, we may have found something remarkable. She paused, looking around the room at each species representative. I propose we send a joint fleet. Not for war, but for discovery. Representatives from every major species, showing that we come in peace but prepared for any possibility. The vote was close, but the decision was made. The largest peaceful expedition in galactic history would be assembled. Scientists, diplomats, and yes, some military vessels would travel together to this mysterious world to learn the truth. As the meeting ended and the various species began making preparations, None of them noticed the small probe hidden in the asteroid belt at the edge of their system. The probe had been watching and listening for over 50 years, recording everything and sending regular reports back to its creators. On a small blue world in the outer rim, Captain Jake Morrison read the latest intelligence report with satisfaction. He stood in the command center of the lunar base, deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, surrounded by screens showing star maps and fleet movements. "They took the bait," he said to Lieutenant Amy Carter, who was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. 47 species, just like we predicted. The largest fleet in their history, all coming to answer our little invitation. Amy smiled as she watched the alien preparations through their hidden sensors. "Phase 1 complete, sir." They're confused, curious, and just scared enough to take us seriously. "How long until they arrive?" "Our calculations show 3 months," Morrison replied. "That gives us time to make final preparations." After waiting over 2 centuries for this moment, we want everything to be perfect. He turned to look at the massive display showing Earth's true defensive network. Hundreds of hidden stations, cloaked ships, and monitoring posts scattered throughout the galaxy. The aliens had no idea what they were really coming to investigate. "Send word to President Stone," Morrison ordered. "Tell her the galaxy is finally ready to meet humanity, and we're ready to meet them." The signal had been sent over 200 years ago, a carefully planned message designed to eventually bring the galactic community to Earth's doorstep. Now, as alien fleets prepared for their journey, humanity made final preparations for the most important first contact in galactic history. The waiting was almost over. Admiral Rexthal stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His 4 arms worked frantically over the controls, running scan after scan, hoping the sensors were malfunctioning. But the readings remained the same. The primitive world they had come to investigate was anything but primitive. "Sir," called his aide, Lieutenant Sylvan, "the long-range sensors are detecting massive orbital structures. Space stations, mining facilities, defensive platforms. This is not what our survey." Teams reported. Rexthal's red eyes glowed with frustration. "How is this possible? Our last survey was only 30 years ago. They reported basic industrial development, primitive chemical rockets, no spaceflight capability at all. The combined galactic fleet had arrived at the edge of the system just hours ago, expecting to find a simple world with curious inhabitants. Instead, they found a thriving spacefaring civilization with technology that seemed to match their own. "Sir," Sylvan continued, "I'm detecting over 200 orbital installations. Some of them are larger than our capital ships. And there's something else. Energy readings suggest advanced weapon systems." Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, President Lisa Stone sat in the secure command center, surrounded by her top advisors. The moment humanity had been preparing for over 2 centuries was finally here. "The alien fleet is holding position at the system's edge," reported General Kevin Hayes, commander of Solar Defense. 47 ships, representing every major power in the galaxy. They're running deep scans, trying to understand what they're seeing. Dr. Nathan Cross, the elderly scientist who had helped develop humanity's long-term strategy, smiled from his wheelchair. "They're confused. This is exactly what we predicted would happen. They expected to find primitives, not equals." "Are our people ready?" Stone asked. "Captain Morrison is standing by on the horizon," Hayes replied. "All of our hidden assets are in position. The moment you give the word, we can begin Phase 2. Stone nodded. "Then let's show them what humanity is really capable of. Give Morrison the authorization codes." On the bridge of the UNS Horizon, Captain Jake Morrison received the transmission and turned to his crew. The ship had been waiting in the asteroid belt, cloaked and invisible to alien sensors. Now it was time to reveal themselves. "Amy, Decloak the ship and open a channel to the alien fleet. Morrison ordered. Lieutenant Amy Carter's fingers flew over her controls. Channel open, sir. We're broadcasting on all coalition frequencies. Morrison straightened his uniform and faced the main screen. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Nations Ship Horizon, representing the United Nations of Earth. We welcome you to our solar system. The response from the alien fleet was immediate chaos. 47 different species began talking at once, their voices mixing together in a symphony of confusion and surprise. They had been scanning the system for hours without detecting any large human ships, yet now one had appeared seemingly from nowhere. Admiral Rexthal was the first to regain his composure. Human vessel, I am Admiral Rexthal of the Galactic Coalition. We received your signal and have come to investigate. How were you able to remain hidden from our sensors? Morrison smiled. We've had a long time to perfect our stealth technology, Admiral. But that's not the most important question you should be asking. What do you mean? The question you should be asking is how we knew you were coming and why we sent that signal in the first place. The alien fleet's command channel fell silent. The implications of Morrison's words were staggering. The signal had been sent over 2 centuries ago, long before these species had even known about Earth's existence. You're saying you sent the signal deliberately? Asked Commander Zethkari, his voice filled with disbelief. Not just the signal, Morrison replied. We've been watching your species for over 200 years. We know your languages, your cultures, your political structures. We know about the trade war between the Zephyrians and the Krillians. We know about the border disputes in the Outer Rim. We know about your military capabilities and your defensive strategies. The alien representatives stared at their screens in shock. How could this species, which they had believed to be primitive, know so much about their affairs? That's impossible, Admiral Rexthal said. Our security protocols would have detected any surveillance operations. Would they? Morrison asked. Amy, show them surveillance footage from the Krillian High Command meeting last month. Amy activated a holographic display that showed clear footage of a classified military briefing from deep within Krillian space. The alien commanders recognized the scene immediately. It was from their most secure facility, protected by the best technology their species possessed. We've been there, Morrison continued. We've been everywhere. Hidden monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, recording everything, learning everything. We've been preparing for this moment for over 2 centuries. The alien fleet was now in full panic mode. Species representatives were shouting orders, demanding explanations, trying to understand how their most secret activities had been observed by creatures they had never even known existed. Why? Asked Elder Cephia, the ancient being's voice cutting through the chaos. Why watch us? Why remain hidden? What do you want? Morrison's expression grew serious. We want to join your coalition, but not as junior partners or newly discovered primitives. We want to join as equals, with full knowledge of what we're getting into. You've been testing us, Zethkari realized. All this time, you've been evaluating whether we're worthy of contact, just as you've been evaluating us, Morrison replied. The difference is, we've been doing it for much longer and with much better information. President Stone's voice came through the communication system from Earth. Representatives of the Galactic Coalition, I am President Lisa Stone of Earth. We apologize for the deception, but it was necessary. We needed to know what kind of galaxy we were joining before we revealed ourselves. How long have you known? About us? Asked Dr. Velther. Since 1977, Stone replied. We detected one of your probe signals, reverse-engineered the technology, and began our own exploration of the galaxy. We've been out there among you for over a century, learning and preparing. The truth was overwhelming. Humanity had not only known about galactic civilization for centuries, but had been actively infiltrating it, studying it, and preparing for eventual contact. The traditional roles of first contact were completely reversed. So what happens now? Admiral Rexthal asked. Morrison smiled. Now, we invite you to visit our world. We have much to show you, and much to discuss. But first, we need to establish some ground rules. You're not dealing with primitives anymore. You're dealing with equals who have been preparing for this meeting longer than some of your species have existed. The alien fleet had come expecting to find simple creatures in need of guidance. Instead, they had found a species that knew more about them than they knew about themselves. The galaxy would never be the same. The space station Harmony was massive, larger than anything the galactic representatives had expected humans to be capable of building. As their shuttles approached the docking bays, they could see the incredible detail in its construction. The station had been designed specifically for this meeting, with environmental controls that could accommodate every species in the galaxy. Dr. Elena Foster waited in the main conference chamber as the alien delegates filed in. She had spent decades preparing for this moment, studying every species that would be represented. Now, watching them enter the room, she felt the weight of humanity's greatest secret pressing down on her shoulders. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering. Different sections had been designed for different atmospheric needs. Aquatic zones for water-breathing species, high-pressure areas for those from heavy worlds, and specialized lighting for beings with sensitive eyes. It was clear that the humans had put enormous thought into making everyone comfortable. "Welcome," Dr. Foster said as the last delegate took their place. "I know you have many questions about what you've seen and heard. Before we begin formal discussions, I believe you deserve the complete truth." She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The image showed Earth as it appeared in the late 20th century, a blue-green world with small cities and primitive technology. "This is how we looked when we first detected your presence," Foster explained. The year was 1977. We had just launched 2 primitive spacecraft called Voyager probes. They carried messages intended for any alien intelligence that might find them. The display shifted to show the famous golden records attached to the Voyager probes, with their simple pictorial representations of humanity. What our people didn't know at the time was that we had already received a signal, a brief transmission from somewhere in the galaxy, lasting only a few minutes. It was clearly artificial, clearly intelligent, and it changed everything. Commander Zethkari leaned forward in his specialized chair. "You're saying you achieved interstellar communication in the 20th century?" "Not communication," Foster corrected. "Detection. We picked up one of your survey probes as it passed through our system. The signal was weak, but our radio telescopes caught it. We knew we weren't alone, but we also knew we weren't ready for contact." The holographic display showed the secret development of human technology over the following decades. Underground laboratories, hidden research facilities, and a carefully managed public space program that concealed humanity's true progress. "We studied that signal for years," Foster continued. "Eventually, we managed to decode enough of it to understand the basic principles of faster-than-light travel. We began building our own ships, our own technology, based on what we learned from you." The alien representatives sat in stunned silence. They were beginning to understand the scope of what humanity had accomplished. While they had been going about their normal lives, humans had been secretly developing advanced technology and exploring the galaxy. "We couldn't reveal ourselves immediately," Foster explained. "We were still primitive by galactic standards. So we began the longest intelligence operation in human history. We sent out small, undetectable probes to learn everything we could about your civilizations." The display showed the gradual expansion of human presence throughout the galaxy. Tiny monitoring stations hidden in asteroid fields, cloaked ships, observing trade routes, and secret facilities on remote worlds. For over 2 centuries, we've been watching you, Foster continued. Learning your languages, studying your cultures, understanding your politics. We've seen your wars, your peace treaties, your technological advances. We've been preparing for this moment for longer than most of your species have known about. Each other. General Hayes stepped forward, his military bearing evident even in the diplomatic setting. We've established over 3,000 monitoring posts throughout the galaxy. We know the location of every major military base, every trade hub, every research facility. We've been tracking your ship movements, your communications, your scientific discoveries. The implications were staggering. The alien representatives began to realize that their most secret activities had been observed by these humans for generations. Their security, which they had considered unbreachable, had been completely compromised. But why? Asked Dr. Velther, his tentacles writhing with agitation. Why go to such lengths? Why not make contact earlier? Foster's expression grew serious. Because we learned something about the galaxy that you seem to have forgotten. The universe is dangerous. Your species have been at peace for so long that you've become complacent. You've forgotten what it means to be cautious, to be prepared. She activated another display, this one showing various threats that humanity had detected during their centuries of observation. Rogue artificial intelligences, hostile species beyond the galactic rim, and energy phenomena that could destroy entire star systems. We've been your early warning system, Foster continued. 17 times in the past century, we've detected threats that could have endangered your civilization. We've quietly neutralized some of them, diverted others, and prepared contingency plans for the rest. The alien delegates looked at each other in amazement. They had no idea that such threats had existed, let alone that they had been protected from them. You've been protecting us? Asked Ambassador Quill, her feathers ruffling with surprise. We've been protecting ourselves, General Hayes replied. We knew that eventually we would want to join your civilization. It was in our interest to make sure that civilization survived until we were ready to reveal ourselves. Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system from his ship. Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't infiltrate your society to harm you. We did it to understand you. We needed to know what kind of galaxy we were joining before we committed ourselves to it. Elder Cephia spoke up, her ancient voice carrying the weight of centuries. You've been testing us. All this time, you've been evaluating whether we were worthy of contact. Just as you would have tested us, Foster replied. The difference is, we've been doing it for much longer, and with much better information. We've seen how your species interact with each other, how you handle crises, how you treat those weaker than yourselves. The chamber fell silent as the full scope of humanity's operation became clear. They had been subjects of study, unwitting, participants in a massive intelligence-gathering effort that had lasted for generations. So what is your conclusion? Asked Admiral Rexthal. After 2 centuries of observation, what do you think of us? Foster smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We think you're exactly the kind of civilization we want to join. You've maintained peace for centuries. You've worked together to solve problems. And you've shown that different species can coexist and prosper. That's why we're here. But you're not here as supplicants, Sethkari observed. You're here as equals, more than equals, General Hayes said quietly. We're here as your protectors. We've been watching over you for so long that we've become invested in your survival. We're not just asking to join your coalition. We're offering to strengthen it. The alien representatives were beginning to understand that this was not a typical first contact situation. They were not dealing with a primitive species seeking guidance, but with a highly advanced civilization that had been secretly safeguarding the galaxy for centuries. The revelation changed everything. The balance of power. In the galaxy had shifted, and nobody was quite sure what would happen next. The days following the revelation were filled with tension. The alien representatives struggled to accept what they had learned, while demanding proof of humanity's extraordinary claims. Dr. Samuel Brooks, Earth's chief military strategist, stood before the assembled delegates with a grim expression on his face. "You want proof?" Brooks asked, his voice cutting through the nervous chatter in the chamber. "Very well. But understand that what we're about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about galactic security." He activated a massive holographic display that filled the entire chamber. The three-dimensional map showed the galaxy in incredible detail, with thousands of small dots scattered throughout every sector, every star system, every region of space. Each of these dots represents a human installation, Brooks explained. Monitoring stations, supply depots, research facilities, defensive platforms, and communication relays. We have been building this network for over 2 centuries, one piece at a time. The scale was breathtaking. The alien representatives stared in amazement at the sheer number of installations. There were thousands of them, spread across every corner of known space, often within light years of major alien worlds. "This is impossible," whispered Admiral Rexthal, his forearms trembling as he studied the display. "Our sensor networks would have detected such installations. We monitor all space traffic, all construction activities. You couldn't have built this without us knowing, could we?" Brooks asked with a slight smile. "Let me show you something specific." The display zoomed in on the Krillian home system, focusing on what appeared to be an empty region of space near the outer asteroid belt. The area looked completely normal, just floating rocks and cosmic dust. "Computer," Brooks commanded, "decloak monitoring station KS7. Suddenly, a massive structure materialized in the holographic display. The installation was enormous, easily the size of a small city, with advanced sensors, communication arrays, and what appeared to be powerful weapon systems. It had been sitting there, invisible and undetected, less than a light hour from the Krillian homeworld. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Krillian representatives jumped to their feet, shouting in their native language. Other species began demanding explanations, their voices mixing together in a symphony of outrage and disbelief. "You've been spying on us." General Morks roared, his red eyes blazing with anger. "You've been watching our most private activities, our military exercises, our government meetings." "Yes," Brooks said simply. "We have, just as you would have done to us if you had discovered our existence first." The alien delegates were struggling to process the implications. If humans had been watching them for centuries, what secrets had they learned? What weaknesses had they discovered? What advantages did they now possess? Captain Morrison's voice came through the communication system, calm and steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, please consider this carefully. We've had the capability to strike at any of your worlds for the past 50 years. We've watched your wars, your political upheavals, your technological developments. We've seen your species at their best and their worst." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Yet we've never attacked. We've never invaded. We've never even revealed our presence until now. We've been your silent guardians, not your enemies." Dr. Foster stepped forward, her expression serious but not threatening. "We've been testing you just as you've been testing us. Every diplomatic crisis you've faced, every trade negotiation you've conducted, every military exercise you've performed, we've been watching and learning." "Learning what?" asked Elder Cephia, her ancient voice filled with curiosity rather than anger. "Learning whether you were the kind of civilization we wanted to join," Foster replied. "Learning whether you could be trusted with the knowledge of our existence. Learning whether you would welcome us as friends or see us as threats." The alien representatives began to understand that they had been subjects of an enormous experiment. For centuries, humanity had been studying them, evaluating them, deciding whether they were worthy of contact. So, what was your conclusion? Asked Commander Zethkari. After all this observation, what did you decide about us? Captain Morrison answered from his ship. We decided that you passed the test. You've maintained peace for centuries. You've worked together to solve problems. You've shown that different species can coexist and prosper. You've demonstrated exactly the kind of civilization we hope to find. But you're not just asking to join us, Dr. Velther observed, his tentacles writhing with nervous energy. You're offering to protect us. You're saying you've already been protecting us. General Hayes nodded. 17 times in the past century, we've detected threats that could have endangered your civilization. Rogue artificial intelligences, hostile species from beyond the galactic rim, cosmic phenomena that could destroy entire star systems. He activated another display showing various incidents that the aliens had never known about. Space battles, fought in remote sectors, dangerous experiments quietly shut down, and potential invasions that had been prevented through careful manipulation of events. We've been your early warning system, Hayes continued. We've neutralized some threats, diverted others, and prepared contingency plans for the rest. You've been living in safety partly because we've been watching your backs. The revelation was overwhelming. The alien representatives realized that their peaceful existence had been maintained not just through their own efforts, but through the secret protection of a species they had never known existed. Why? Asked Ambassador Quill. Why protect us? Why not simply reveal yourselves and ask for help? Because we learned something about the galaxy that you seem to have forgotten, Dr. Foster replied. The universe is dangerous. Your species have been at peace for so long that you've become complacent. You've forgotten what it means to be truly cautious, to be prepared for the worst. Brooks activated a final display showing the current state of galactic defenses. Your military forces are designed for internal peacekeeping, not external threats. Your sensor networks are focused on trade routes, not deep space monitoring. Your research programs prioritize comfort and convenience, not survival. The alien. Delegates looked at the analysis with growing unease. They had to admit that humanity's assessment was accurate. They had become so comfortable with peace that they had neglected many aspects of galactic security. So what happens now? Asked Admiral Rexthal. What do you want from us? President Stone's voice came through the communication system from Earth. We want to join your coalition, but not as junior partners or newly discovered primitives. We want to join as equals, with full knowledge of what we're getting into, and full capability to contribute to our mutual defense. You're asking us to accept you as protectors, Elder Cephia observed, to acknowledge that you've been watching over us without our knowledge or consent. We're asking you to accept us as partners, Morrison corrected. We've proven that we can contribute to galactic security. We've shown that we're committed to peace. We've demonstrated that we're already invested in your survival. The chamber fell silent as the alien representatives considered their options. They were being offered a partnership with a species that had capabilities they had never imagined, but at the cost of accepting that their security had been an illusion. You've changed everything, Zethkari said finally. A balance of power. In the galaxy, the assumptions we've made about our own safety, the very nature of first contact itself. We've revealed the truth, Dr. Foster replied. The question now is whether you're ready to accept that truth and work with us to build something better. The test was complete. Now it was time for the aliens to decide whether humanity would be welcomed as partners or feared as a threat. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. For the first time, the coalition was dealing with a species that knew as much about them as they knew about themselves. The traditional power dynamics had been completely reversed and both sides were struggling to find their footing. Dr. Elena Foster found herself in the unusual position of having to reassure the alien representatives rather than seeking their approval. The conference room on Harmony Station had been reconfigured multiple times as different species took turns presenting their concerns and demands. "We understand your worries about our methods," Foster said during one particularly difficult session. "But consider the alternative. What if we had revealed ourselves as a hostile force? What if we had used our knowledge for conquest instead of protection?" The Zephyrian delegate, a crystalline being named Kethmer, spoke in their species' characteristic, harmonic tones. "Your species has demonstrated capabilities that exceed our own in many areas. How can we trust that you won't use this advantage against us in the future?" Captain Morrison, who had been quietly observing the proceedings, finally spoke up. "Because we've already had that advantage for decades and chosen not to use it. We could have crippled your defense networks, disrupted your trade routes, or stolen your most advanced technology. Instead, we chose to wait, to learn, and to prepare for peaceful contact." The truth of his words was undeniable. Humanity had possessed the capability to cause tremendous damage to galactic civilization, yet they had chosen protection over exploitation. It was a level of restraint that few species could claim they would have shown in similar circumstances. Over the following weeks, the negotiations evolved into something unprecedented. Humanity offered their intelligence networks, their advanced stealth technology, and their unique perspective as long-term observers of galactic affairs. In return, they sought full membership in the coalition and access to the galaxy's vast resources and knowledge. General Hayes presented a comprehensive analysis that shocked even the most experienced alien diplomats. "We've identified 17 potential crisis points that could destabilize the coalition within the next 50 years. We've also developed contingency plans for each scenario." The analysis was more thorough than anything the coalition's own intelligence services had produced. The humans had the advantage of being outside observers, able to see patterns and connections that those within the system might miss. "The border dispute between the Outer Rim colonies and the core worlds is going to escalate," Hayes explained, pointing to a section of the galactic map. "Our projections show it will reach crisis level within 3 years unless specific diplomatic interventions are made." "We've been monitoring that situation for months," Admiral Rexthal protested. "Our analysts believe it will resolve itself through normal diplomatic channels." "Your analysts are looking at it from inside the system," Hayes replied. "They're seeing what they expect to see. We've been watching the private communications, the secret military preparations, the resource allocations. The situation is much more serious than your reports indicate. Time and again, humanity's analysis proved more accurate than the coalition's own intelligence. They had identified threats that the established powers had missed, predicted conflicts that others thought impossible, and developed solutions to problems that hadn't yet manifested. The alien representatives were forced to admit that humanity's perspective was invaluable. Their centuries of observation had given them insights that no amount of formal intelligence gathering could match." President Stone addressed the final session of the negotiations via holographic projection from Earth. "We're not asking you to change your way of life or abandon your independence. We're asking you to let us help you preserve what you've built. And what do you get in return?" asked Elder Cephia, her ancient wisdom evident in every word. "We get to be part of something larger than ourselves," Stone replied. "We get to contribute to a civilization that has achieved what we've always dreamed of, true peace among the stars. We get to stop being watchers and start being participants." The final ceremony took place on Harmony Station, with representatives from all 48 species present. A signing of the Harmony Accords was broadcast throughout the galaxy, marking humanity's official entry into galactic civilization, But this was not a typical admission ceremony. The Accords established humanity not just as the Coalition's newest members, but as their guardians and protectors. A human intelligence network would become an integral part of galactic security, their monitoring stations officially recognized as early warning systems. Today marks not just the admission of humanity into the Galactic Coalition, President Stone said as she signed the historic document, but the beginning of a new era of cooperation and mutual understanding. She looked at each of the alien representatives. In turn, her expression serious but hopeful. We have shown that trust must be earned through actions, not just words. We have proven that peaceful intentions must be demonstrated over time, not simply declared. The ceremony concluded with the activation of humanity's intelligence network as an official coalition asset. Thousands of monitoring stations that had operated in secret for centuries were now openly acknowledged as part of the galaxy's defense system. As the various species representatives prepared to return to their home worlds, many found themselves changed by the experience. They had learned that their comfortable assumptions about galactic security had been illusions, but they had also discovered that they had been protected by guardians they never knew existed. Dr. Foster approached Commander Zefkari as he prepared to board his ship. I hope you understand that everything we did was necessary. We had to know what kind of galaxy we were joining. The alien commander considered this for a long moment before responding. Perhaps it is we who should be thanking you. You've shown us that our security was not as complete as we believed. In doing so, you've made us all safer. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Horizon, watching as the combined fleet began its journey back to various corners of the galaxy. The ships that had arrived as potential invaders were now leaving as allies and partners. Amy, he called to his communications officer, send a message to all human installations throughout the galaxy. Tell them the waiting is over. After 237 years, we can finally come home. Amy Carter smiled as she sent the message that would reach every corner of the galaxy. Thousands of human personnel who had spent their lives in hidden bases and secret installations would finally be able to reveal themselves to their alien neighbors. Message sent, sir, she reported. All stations are acknowledging receipt. They're ready to begin open operations. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. Good, and Amy? Send a personal message to Earth. Tell them the mission is complete. The galaxy is ready for humanity, and humanity is ready for the galaxy. The transformation that followed was remarkable. Hidden human installations throughout the galaxy began revealing themselves to their alien neighbors. The monitoring station near the Krillian homeworld established open diplomatic contact with local authorities. Research facilities in remote sectors began sharing their scientific discoveries. Defense platforms that had operated in secret for decades started coordinating with coalition military forces. The galaxy had to adjust to a new reality. Humanity was not just another member species. They were the guardians who had been watching over everyone for centuries. Their technology, their intelligence networks, and their unique perspective as long-term observers made them invaluable partners in maintaining galactic peace. Trade routes that had been mysteriously safe for decades were revealed to have been protected by human patrols. Scientific breakthroughs that had seemed to come from nowhere were shown to have been quietly guided by human researchers. Political crises that had resolved themselves at the last moment had been carefully managed by human diplomats working behind the scenes. The signal that had started it all, the mysterious transmission that had brought the galactic fleet to Earth, was finally understood for what it truly was. Not a cry for help from a primitive world, but an invitation from a species that had been ready for contact for over 2 centuries. Dr. Foster stood in the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching the last of the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. The negotiations were over, the accords were signed, and humanity had officially joined the galactic community. "It's strange," she said to Captain Morrison, who had joined her at the viewing port. "We spent so long preparing for this moment, and now it's over in what feels like an instant." "It's not over," Morrison replied. "It's just beginning. We've spent 2 centuries learning about the galaxy. Now we get to help shape its future. The age of humanity's isolation was over. The age of galactic partnership had begun. And for the first time in their history, humans could look up at the stars and know that they were not alone. They were home. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from conquest or domination, but from patience, preparation, and the wisdom to know when to reveal oneself. The signal that had started, it all had been answered, and the answer was more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined.